Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. This is my first official race of the season. Now, I've done a couple of practice crits, and they were with our local skills clinic. Whoa, don't need to crash that early in the race here. And then the first practice race that I did, I just sucked in. And the second race that I didn't suck in. And I was looking forward to today. So this is a 60 and 55s combination group, and there seems to be about an even 50-50 mix or close to it. I think there were 35 racers in the race. I'm just guessing here. I haven't seen any numbers. And then once I got going in the race, I started feeling a lot better. But I think my problem started, not with the outcome of the race, mind you, but my problem started by not doing the right things the day before. I didn't get on the bike the day before. The last time I was on the bike was on Wednesday. Now this is Saturday. I got up a little before 4 o'clock, about 3:30 to get here on time. This is an 8:50 start, and being an old guy and knowing that I wasn't going to warm up and do any type of ride the previous day, I want to make sure I had a long enough warm up. Okay, so and I also noticed some funny things happening with my heart when I got on the bike early this morning, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So the main thing I wanted to do here is first last with the pack. Okay, if you see up ahead on the right side there, in the blue and the white jersey up there, that's my teammate. Now, he is the first teammate that I've had on OTF that is older than I am. Actually, I had one long time ago, but that's Gilberto, and he is 70 this year, and he's 5 years older than me. Okay, so the course here, it's a very fast course. In fact, our race averaged over 26 miles an hour. It's kind of in the shape of a U-bolt. There are two 90-degree turns, one coming out of the start-finish and one going into the start-finish, and then everything else is pretty much one long curve with no turns in it. Now, there is a false flat type of action happening when you get out of turn one, and then when you're going into when you're coming out of the last turn, going for the start finish, then you have something that's just a little steeper than a false flat. All right, so I obviously wanted to be able to finish with a pack, and that was the minimum that I wanted to do, and of course not to crash. Now, if you've seen my previous video, I talked about that I was really looking forward to this race, and then when I put out the question of should I do this race or the road race the next day, and it's a good thing I didn't do the road race the next day because I understand it was very windy, and I heard that some of the races were canceled. I haven't gotten any verification from that. I just haven't looked on any social media, just from a teammate of mine commented on some stuff that he heard. And in that same text that I got from him, he was stating that there were 40-mile-an-hour winds and 50-mile-an-hour gusts or so, which is not as strong as what I had to race in one year when I went to Tour de Gila. Stage 2 had 55-mile-an-hour winds and 65-mile-an-hour gusts, and we were really feeling that when we were approaching the final main climb, which was about 15 miles from the finish. And everything just broke apart there, and it just shattered, and I was one of those that shattered, of course, and I had to at times just get off my bike and walk the bike up while I was leaning the bike into the wind, and sometimes a gust would come by and it would blow my bike up, and I'm literally holding my bike as it is perpendicular to me as I'm standing against the wind and it's going in the other direction. Yeah, it took about an extra hour just to complete that race, just because of that last section there. And my host family that I was staying with, I forgot if I mentioned this, but this was Tour de Gila. My host family that I was staying with were a little nervous for me because they hadn't heard anything. And you know it was going to be a tough day when you get to the race and 5 of the 8 porta potties are blown over. Okay, so what I wanted to do is, again, finish with a pack and just get myself in good position. So I also wanted to test myself. And an old team director called me up and he said, what you should do is just attack and then sit up and recover as best you can and attack. And of course, when I raced with him, I was 45. I was between 45 and 52. About 7 years I was with him. And so that's what he remembers. But now, 65, that's going to be a little tougher to do. especially in the early part of the season for me. So, but I did get that action in because that was happening at times off the back, or when I was near the back, there'd be a surge coming and I have to put a lot of power in and then do what I could to recover when I got on somebody's wheel. Okay, so we just crossed the start-finish line. When we go around there again, so my main problem was coming out of turn one. I wasn't always in good position. Sometimes I would be racing efficiently, and sometimes I wouldn't be racing efficiently. And there'd be a surge coming, probably because of the speed at the front, and I'm at the near the back end. When the little insert that I have there with my back camera, you can still see there's people back there. Sometimes there wasn't a lot of people back there, and sometimes there was. So in this case, we have 3 poor souls behind me. But I'd have to surge out of this thing and waste a lot of energy doing that. It gave me the workout I needed, but I should pay for it in the second race, which we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, so my heart situation this morning. I get on the trainer, and my heart rate immediately is 138. And I've noticed that before when I'm getting out in the cold. And I've noticed that this year. I hadn't noticed it in previous years, maybe because I was a little more careful in the previous years, being 1 or 2 years into the AFib situation that I'm in. So this time, I've seen it enough recently that I just didn't worry about it, and I just kept pedaling, and eventually it went down. So it's kind of like a trigger. Okay, so you see right here as we're coming up on that small, ever so small, little more than false flat, and all the roads here were good, but there was a nice smooth section that I'm not on right now. You can see the guy next to me is on. That was sweet when it's coming up. But most everybody liked that, and so I was on it maybe a third of the time. Okay, so back to the heart. So, floating around 138 or so for about 5 to 10 minutes, and eventually it gets down to where it should be as I'm working out, as I'm warming up on the trainer, like around 100 or so, before I start doing small accelerations and so forth. So I want to be able to get a number of accelerations in with, obviously without making myself too tired or making my legs too tired. Because if I try to go into this cold, especially at my age, that just spells disaster in terms of being able to stay with everyone. And I did a good enough job. I was on the bike, then I was off the bike doing this and that, then I was back on the bike, so eventually I had enough of a warm-up. When I first drove to the site, I got out and then I started, setting things up. Usually I start with the trainer, setting the bike on the trainer, and this person comes by and says, that is a very cool retro bike. It's not my intent for that to be a retro bike, but as I keep telling everybody, these bikes that I have now, they're gonna have to last as long as I do. I'm not gonna be buried with them. Okay, so obviously what I need to do is at this point get on wheels and stay on wheels, and I was doing that part of the time. I was still a little wary of the crash situation. Now I was fine actually mentally with riding close to everybody, and for those of you that don't know, I had a whole end of season crash last year where I had clavicle, lungs, a punctured lung and ribs. And when you first get back on the bike, a lot more careful. There's my teammate Gilberto there. Yeah, he was riding. Now he was racing pretty well. I mean, he was usually in good position that I saw, and he was doing a lot better than I was. So, eventually that goes away. I am, a lot more comfortable being close to people, but I was still being a little careful here. I noticed that I usually like to get my nose into the crevices, so to speak, where I am covered as much as protected as much as I can be. And I was doing that some of the times, and other times I wasn't doing that. And so like in this case, I could really move up on the inside and make up some places. So I am doing it here. Good. Other times I wasn't doing that. The group as a whole, they were just solid safe, from my vantage point. even though there was a crash on the last lap, and we'll talk about that when I get there. So here, coming into it, I had a lot better time with this corner, even though I'm now coming off, and it could be that I'm just tired right now, just a little bit tired from some recent acceleration. I'm not sure. But all is good, and I'm just always concerned about turn one. Being on the inside was a good place to be. A shorter distance, and I usually kept pedaling through every turn. I usually was able to move up on the back end and on that U portion of the course. It would have been between 2 and 3, or around turn 3 if there was a turn 3. And then I would consequently usually lose it on after turn 1. Okay, now I'm doing something smart again. I'm actually moving up to the inside and taking advantage of wheels and of draft in this situation. And I'm actually toward the front quarter of the pack right now, which unfortunately was unusual for me. Usually I was in the back 20% or so. And usually when I had to put out power, I would spike into the 500s. I don't think I ever went above that. Now this is a good time to move up, and I'm not moving up. I just don't have confidence in my form right now. Yeah, this would be perfect, especially on the smooth right here. To get on that guy's wheel, now I would have lost that wheel. So the guy that's up there, he's gone onto the wheel that I should have gone on to. I'm going to be doing a lot more crits, I think, this year, because being 65, and as all the masters know, when you turn to a new 5-year age increment, you're going to go to nationals. And nationals this year are in Utah. I think they're around the southwest portion of Utah. And being from Central California, that means I can drive there. I have to worry about dealing with airports and bike luggage and so forth. And that I don't mind at all. Okay, here's another case. Now, the camera makes things look farther away than what they are, I believe. So I had a chance to get up to that wheel with the guy in the blue up there, but I didn't. It may be because I just didn't have enough room. But I need to be hanging on to this guy's wheel. So hopefully I'm not going to drift back. Oh, I'm drifting back. I'm just, I don't know again if my form isn't there, or I'm getting nervous, or what it is. I shouldn't be getting nervous, not over here. So that's the smart guy right there. Now if I had the balls, I would have got on his wheel, because he's now going into a good position. He's moving up. That's what I should be doing. So he's like 4 bike lengths ahead of me. Good on him. Let's see what I do now. We're stretched out. We're coming into the turn. Slight rise. My wattage has gone up to a little over 500, and people are passing me up, and that shouldn't be happening. I mean, I'm on the smooth part. No, I'm not even well on the smooth part of the road. So these guys, they're improving their position, and I'm just still back here. Could be nerves again. Could be form or combination. Could be they called a preem, and it may be they called a preem on this one. So now, rather than jumping up like these other guys are doing, I'm on this guy's wheel, thinking that this guy is going to pull me up there. So if I don't have to waste energy jumping up because I just got out of a 500 plus surge, then all the better. And in this case, it worked out. And there is my teammate just behind that inset in there, and yeah, he didn't seem to have a problem at all. And when I talked to him after the race, he didn't have a problem. Good on him, 70 years old. If you have seen my previous video, you'll see my friends that also went to the race here, Kat and Nat. So they did the women's 4-5 race. Unfortunately, the women's 4.5s were combined with the men's 4.5s. Now, I understand, especially being a promoter, I've promoted races for 8 years, and I certainly understand combining races, and you only have so much real estate, so to speak, time during the day in which to maximize your revenues. But combining the men's force fives with the women's force fives, that they should probably rethink that. We are all stretched out here. Yeah, I'm still in over 500 watts. And what's our speed going on here? I can't tell with what I have here, but probably could have been close to 28. Again, so we averaged a little over 26 for this entire race. And this was a 40-minute race. Yeah, so I've done my share of combining categories before, and in fact, how they had the offerings for this race, I could have raced 5 crits without a break in between, just because I am Cat 3, and I, being 65, there was a 35 3 4s, there was 2 3s, P123s, I think. So I understand why they're doing that. I think in their pre-reg they had just under 200 riders, and I'm sure a number of them, like me, sign up for multiple races. So that second race, and I really like the pricing structure of this one. They had $35 for your first race, and it used to be $35 was unheard of, but now it's a deal, and $10 for the second race, and so that was extremely cool. But they had I think 197 for the pre-reg. I'm not sure, right around there. And so those all weren't first races. I'm sure they had a number of multiple races in there. So the 200 riders at $35 is not the same as 100 riders at $35 and 100 riders at $10. So it costs money to put these on, and if they're if this money supplies their team, that's just more pressure where you have to maximize your revenues. But all that being said, maybe they can consider next year not to have a women's force fives with the men's force fives. I think there were something like 50 men's force fives and 9 women's force fives. And it may be the reason that they only had 9 women's force fives is because these women never raced in a race with men's force fives before. So maybe all the others that didn't sign up had experienced that before and weren't going to do that type of thing again. So anyway, just my 2 cents there. All right, so I'm a little smarter here right now. Just got to stay on that guy's wheel, and we're kind of bunched up now, and so that always made me just a tad nervous, but not extremely nervous. I just made note of it, and heading into a turn. But again, these guys are pretty rock solid, and the turns were wide, and all was good. Rather than have you guys listen to me bloviate for another 20 minutes, I have jumped over to, we're heading into 6 laps to go. And looking at my little inset there from my rear view camera, you can see there's only one poor soul that's behind me. So I'm pretty much tail gunning it right now. Even though I'm probably thinking, gee, what can I do to move up? The main thing I want to accomplish is one of my weaknesses that I have with a lot of the crits, especially nowadays, is that last few laps, the speed that happens in there, and being able to stay with them. So that's my main goal right now, is just again to finish with the pack and not get dropped heading into the finish. So the guy that was behind me is up in front of me. He's having trouble connecting, and I'm barely on his wheel. So hopefully I can stay connected. And it looks like I'm going to be able to do that. Okay, we have 6 laps to go. No one's behind me, and there appears to be a lane. Now what I should do is go right up on this lane and just move up half the pack. And it looks like, thank goodness, that I'm doing that. Yeah, there were a couple times during this race I actually made some smart moves. So I'm about 1/3 of the way back, maybe halfway back. Seems to be a long arrowhead up there. I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be doing a lot more crits because of nationals this year. The reason being is that I need that high intensity work. Uh, I can get a stopwatch and I do what I can doing various workouts at home here, but being in a race situation, the variability of it it has tremendous value for me. And I need to be able to turn over a big gear fast over and over again whenever I ask my body to do that. And my body isn't responding as it used to when I was much younger. So I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be, or that I could have done 5 crits. I remember way back when that the most crits I ever done in a day was at least 4, and that was down south at the Chuck Pontius crit, Memorial Crit. And this was back in the 90s when I think they had another course. And I may have even done 5. And I remember on that 5th one, I was getting bored, and I don't think I actually survived that 5th one. But when you're only paying like $5 or $10 for a second race, you do that second race or that third race, or in my case, the 5th race. So now I think it's I'm in 5 to go, heading to 4 to go. I'm not quite sure about that. Haven't been paying attention to the lap cards right now, but all I'm worrying about is surviving. Forget about moving up. I see Gilberto up there. He's doing well. He's riding in the wind. Shouldn't be riding in the wind, but it doesn't seem to affect him much. Yeah, that'd be. I wish I could do that. I gotta ride wheels as best I can. Took a bad turn, went wide, and now I'm having to put in a lot of power just to get on wheels. When you look at my power on the screen right now, I think it's not synced up. We had the camera took about 3 sections, and I think I synced up the first 2, and just went with the third, and it isn't doing me any favors right now. But I was putting a lot of power out there, so I think there's a few people behind me, thank goodness, but in case I need to grab a wheel that goes past me. But same situation again. I'm letting this guy go. I'm letting the others go just so I can ride this guy's wheel to get up to the brake. Excuse me, to get up to the rest of the pack. I think there's only a couple guys behind me. So where you saw me make up a lot of time on that previous lap going on the inside, you also saw me lose it when I was going into the turn. So one of the many things I need to work on. And again, I don't think it's more of a comfort level. Maybe there's a little bit of that, but I think it's more with my form. See Gilberto on the outside there, probably on a wheel, much better position than I am. Heading into the turn, there's nobody behind me but the motorcycle. This is foreshadowing. I'm on the smooth road, so I'm going to stay on the smooth road. Less frictional force requires less power to pedal. They had a number of preems, and I think they had some late preems too, and they had a back-to-back preem. I wasn't so concerned about that, but I always made note of that, because obviously the speed went up, especially as we headed into to that last turn. Now I'm not worried about moving up at all. I am just riding wheels, finish with the pack. That's all I care about right now. I have one more race coming up. And unfortunately, that race is the 45 1-2-3s. So I would have chosen to do the 35 3s 4s, but that was right after this race, and I wanted to have a race rest. Just to get some legs back. Okay, I can move up here. Am I going to do that? Am I going to do that? I'm kind of thinking about it. Okay, there. Smart move. Should have done that earlier. Earlier I would have done that, the sooner I would have been on the wheel. I don't know if this is one of the preems or if we're heading into one to go or not. As I'm doing this voiceover, I have the sound off on the camera, but I'm going to put it back on, a little bit. So when we're crossing, you may hear when to go. Okay, I just stopped the voiceover and I looked at the lap card when I moved the thing up, and I went back again, and it's 2 laps to go. We are at 2 laps to go. And I see my teammates back there, and I'm not at the very end, which is real nice, and I've taken the turn somewhat okay. But again, power coming out of that. I have to put a lot of power in just to keep up, and I'm just losing ground. Obviously, these guys are going faster. Now, obviously, this is what I'm looking to get. Being able to stay with these guys as the speed goes up. Back in the day, younger legs, this was not a problem at all. And I notice each year I get older and older. 55s are going to start to get a lot tougher for me. That's why I just got to keep on the ball. Keep training, keep doing all the right things just because I love to race. Okay, we're on the back end, and we are going to be heading into 1 lap to go. People have stacked up to the outside, and looking on the camera behind me, there's just a couple people behind me. I see Gilberto on the left side there. And all of a sudden, a big slowdown. There's probably a team in the front pushing the pace. There were some well-represented teams here. I'm on the smooth, but now I'm not on the smooth. I'm probably thinking, okay, I can hang with these guys just one more lap. These turns are always nice. I can always pedal through there. There's a big surge. I just want to, and then all of a sudden, I see the crash there, and ordinarily I'm thinking, not a problem, but on the corner of my eye, I thought Gilberto was in that crash. And then that just gave me a bit of hesitation, and then I slowed up, and now I'm wondering if he's there or not, but I keep on going. I mean, they're going to have they have their motorcycle back there, so he'll be taken care of. But that was just enough to knock me off the speed, and those guys are going. And I'm just pedaling right now. As it turned out, it wasn't Gilberto, so he's up with the pack. So he finished with the pack, and good on him. So with the 45s, I did the 45s next because of the rest race, and I spun around, and my legs were good, but those guys relative to me are just faster. And I think I only lasted 3 laps, just 3 laps. But I got 3 laps of workout at higher speed. Again, only $10, so good enough. This should also give me a little kick for the Valley of the Sun stage race next weekend. I'll have this right on Strava. Thanks for watching, and remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.